Water scarcity in South Africa has a huge impact on the energy, education and health crisis. Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu is working against the clock to ensure a water-secure country. He was engaging with leading water experts at a National Ministerial Water Sector Sustainability Symposium at Empress Palace on Thursday. Different commissions will focus on key areas before making presentations to the ministry. Let's discuss this further with Water and Sanitation Director General Dr. Sean Phillips. DG, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. And I suppose one of the big things that one would want to know is at the top of the agenda for the minister to discuss with the different commissions is what are the key focus areas to ensure that South Africa remains water secure.
Thank you very much, Rafima, and good afternoon to you and your viewers. We're going to be focusing firstly on the sustainability of water resources, which is the bulk national water that the National Department provides to the water boards and to municipalities and to big industrial users. In that regard, we need to do three things. We firstly need to build more infrastructure such as dams so we can store more water, but there are limitations to that because we're already using about 75% of the available surface water that can be used in South Africa. But we do need to build the other 25% of the infrastructure to capture the rest of the water. And then secondly, and perhaps most importantly, is that we need to use water more sparingly. We need to improve our water conservation and demand management. In South Africa, we use more than the world average in terms of kiloliters of water per person per day, or liters of water per person per day. And yet we're a very water scarce country. And particularly at municipal level, we need to deal with the problem of a lot of the water leaking through leaks in the distribution network. And then thirdly, we need to develop other sources of water more like groundwater. And in our coastal cities, increasingly over time, we're going to need to make more use of seawater desalination, preferably powered through renewable energy. If we do all of these things, then we'll have enough water as a country for our growing population and for the growing economy. But the second area of sustainability that we'll be looking at is the financial sustainability of the sector. At the moment, we're worried about the financial sustainability of the sector because of the problem of poor billing and revenue collection at municipal level, which results in cascading debts up through the water value chain. So we're also going to be discussing how we can deal with that problem and how we can strengthen credit control and billing and revenue collection across the water value chain. And then the third area that we're going to be looking at is the sustainability of water services. As you know, Rafiwa, water services have been deteriorating in South Africa at municipal level in general, and we need to stop that and reverse it. So we're going to be looking at how we can move to a situation where citizens are reliably provided with quality water and sanitation services by their municipalities. And in that regard, we're going to be talking about ways in which we can strengthen our role as the national department, as the regulator of the sector, in terms of developing broader minimum norms and standards for municipalities to adhere to, and strengthening our role as the regulator in terms of enforcing them, and also assisting municipalities to do better in terms of monitoring their own water service providers to ensure that they provide good services. Municipalities are responsible for water distribution in terms of the Constitution as water services authorities, and they're supposed to ensure that the water service providers in their area, which are often themselves, meet minimum standards and provide a reliable service. But they haven't been doing that generally, and we're going to be looking at ways to address that and to assist municipalities to become better water services authorities.
I mean, two important points to take away from that response, DG. The need to better the infrastructure and to improve the water infrastructure in the country, but also increased oversight into water usage. But as you were responding to my question, I wondered about the role of education. South Africa is a relatively small country compared to other countries in the world, and for us to be the large consumer of water, as you've just described, is quite concerning. And so I just wonder if a component of that is not because is because rather of a lack of education when it comes to water scarcity in the country and how water should be used, as was the case in the Western Cape when they were approaching day zero only a few short years ago.
Yes, you're correct, Rafiwa. It has been a consistent message of the department and municipalities and water boards across the country for many years that people need to use water sparingly because it's a scarce resource. In Cape Town, they were actually quite effective in dealing with the pending day zero by increasing that education and awareness campaign. And they did manage to get people to use less water. And similarly, in Nelson Mandela Bay, they've also, where there's a drought at the moment, they've also been having a very strong education and awareness program. And it has had some impact in terms of reducing water consumption. But it's a message we need to keep putting across all the time. Also, quite often, the people who use the most water and who waste it are the wealthier people rather than the poor people. So one of the things that we're going to look at during this sustainability symposium is the possibility of becoming more effective in terms of the way we set the prices and tariffs for water, so that the wealthier people who do use a lot of water and sometimes waste it have to pay more for the water, so that there's an incentive to use water efficiently.
DG, are there any concerns around any kind of malfeasance that may come about? You mentioned a lot of projects that will be coming into place to make sure that South Africa becomes water secure. We've seen various examples of water projects in Guyana, but one example where things didn't go as planned and communities remained without water for extended periods of time. Are you confident that as these projects are rolled out in different parts of the country, that the department will have sufficient oversight to make sure that communities are getting the infrastructure that will provide water sufficiently to them?
Yes, Rafiwa, we're very concerned about that and the possibility of there being corruption in all the water sector investments that we are increasingly doing and will be doing in the future. As the department, we implement some of the projects ourselves, and we've greatly strengthened our internal controls over the last few years, so that our level of irregular expenditure has reduced to almost zero recently compared to previous years. We've also been working closely with the water boards and encouraging them and ensuring that they also improve their internal controls, and to ensure that we have people with integrity on the boards who will be focused on ensuring that the money is spent as it's meant to be spent. We also give quite a considerable amount of money in the form of grants to municipalities, and where we think that there's a risk of malfeasance in those projects by the municipalities, then we monitor them quite closely, to the extent of sometimes getting involved in the management of their projects and putting some of our people as observers on their bid committees to make sure that things run as they're supposed to run.
And of course, while we do have that water, DG, it has to be usable water and drinkable water. And you would have seen that the city of Tshwane released a statement earlier today urging residents of Hammanskraal and surrounding areas to avoid drinking from the taps there because of the diarrheal disease outbreak that has happened there. We just confirmed that about 10 people have now died from the diarrheal disease there. So what kind of interventions is your department looking at when it comes to the quality of water and also just slowing down, if not cutting out completely, this outbreak that we're seeing in different parts of Pretoria and other parts of the country?
We're deeply sorry about the deaths that have occurred in the country, and particularly in the Tshwane area of the last few days from cholera. In Tshwane, there's a particular problem which is caused by malfunctioning and inadequate wastewater treatment works. In the Hammanskraal area, the water that's provided to people is drawn from water resources which are being contaminated by wastewater treatment works under the Tshwane municipality. Over the last few years, we've issued Tshwane municipality with a series of directives instructing them to address the problem, to rehabilitate their wastewater treatment plants, and to make sure that they have sufficient capacity to deal with the wastewater load which is coming into them. Unfortunately, Tshwane has not yet done that work. They do get a grant from the national government called the Urban Settlements Development Grant, which they should be using to prioritize the upgrading of those wastewater treatment works. And when they failed to respond to our directives, we then took the municipality to court, and we're currently engaging in a process in the court to try and force them to use their Urban Settlement Development Grant to upgrade and rehabilitate those wastewater treatment works. And we're hoping that the matter can be settled out of court with an agreement on an action plan by the city to address those wastewater treatment works. The water quality problem in Hammanskraal is not going to be addressed until those wastewater treatment problems are addressed, which are polluting the water from which they draw their drinking water.
And of course, unfortunately, in the meantime, DG, people, as you just sent out your condolences, are dying from the polluted water. What has the city of Tshwane given you as a reason as to why they've been unable to repair the wastewater treatment plants and ensure that the water that is running through the taps is actually usable and not deadly?
They have indicated that they have many needs in Tshwane and they have a shortage of funds. It is our view that they have this grant, the Urban Settlements Development Grant, and they need to prioritize this work with that grant.
So you're saying that there is court action that is currently underway and you're hoping for an out-of-court settlement. Are you able to give the people of the city of Tshwane timeframes into when all of these legalities will be concluded so that the actual groundwork can begin to restore the cleanliness of the water that runs through the taps in the city?
Unfortunately, I can't give timeframes for a court process, Rafiwa. It's out of our control, but we are really concerned about the problem and we are pushing it as hard as we can for the matter to be resolved and for Tshwane to be given an order of the court to use its grant to upgrade those wastewater treatment works.
And then just lastly, DG, if you will, there's 2 days to the submission of the public commentary on the access of state-owned dams for recreational use. What is the update on those consultations that you are able to share with our viewers?
Okay, just to clarify, we did issue we gazetted a notice asking for comments on our draft new regulations for recreation and tourism at dams. We issued that on the 24th of March and gave citizens 60 days to respond to the Gazette notice. So a couple of days ago, we just issued a notice reminding people that the consultation period is coming to an end on the 24th of May. But we think there's a lot of potential for increasing tourism and recreation at our dams. We will also be issuing a request for interest for the private sector to give us proposals for investing more in tourism facilities at our dams and for local communities to do the same, and perhaps partnerships between the private sector and local communities. But as we do that, we need to regulate recreation and tourism at the dams to ensure that it doesn't result in ecological damage and that it's safe and that people don't put themselves at risk by using the dams for recreational purposes.
Thank you very much for that detailed update, Dr. Sean Phillips, this afternoon, speaking to us about that gathering that's going to take place later on this week between the department and important stakeholders related to the water industry and ensuring that South Africa becomes water secure. But also very worryingly, the fact that the city of Tshwane is going through what it is now, 10 people dying from diarrheal disease, possibly cholera, because of a contaminated water. Residents there in Hammanskraal and surrounding areas being advised not to drink from the taps. And as you've just heard the DG there highlighting that they've been giving Tshwane the directive to focus the funds that they get on the restoration of the infrastructure of the wastewater treatment plants so that this issue can be dealt with. Obviously, Tshwane hasn't done this. You heard him say that they don't have enough budget for other important needs within in the city, and so this has led to the court proceedings that are currently underway.